So I did make a promise in my previous video to show you guys what's been happening in my Ultimate Sims 2 Neighbourhood, and I intend on keeping this promise. I know it's been a long time, but you know how it is. And yeah, I know since my last video, the Sims 2 Legacy Collection has come out and I could talk or could have talked about it, but at this moment I just have no original thoughts to share. I did tweet about it a bunch when it came out, but didn't have the time to make a video. Long story short, I bought it. I'm not playing it. I'm still playing another version of the game that works better for me, except I messed up and had to reinstall it, and you know how stressful this game is to reinstall. But it's back up now and I've been playing and making progress in the Ultimatehood, so let's get into it. Before anything else though, I want to remind you guys that I post my screenshots and stories on Tumblr, and I post pretty much everything that happens in the game, so these videos will only attempt to summarize things, and if you feel like you want to know more or cannot wait until I make the next video about the next part of the Neighbourhood, you can always go there and have a read for yourself. So in this video, I want to talk about what's happened so far in Veronaville. Why Veronaville? Because this is the first neighborhood in the city to complete round number 3 in my rotational gameplay. If you want to know about my rules of gameplay for this neighborhood in general, then let me direct you back to the previous video where I attempt to explain how I manage it all. As a reminder, I play rotationally, but not by very strict rules. For example, there is no fixed household order. I try to just play whichever hood or household I want at the moment. So after completing round 2 everywhere, I decided to start round 3 in Veronaville. And since I have already finished it and all the households have caught up to each other, I feel ready to talk about this neighborhood as a whole. I want to take more of a holistic approach in catching you up on the lore and on the state of things, so I might not mention every single detail about every single sim, but hey, I don't have to anyway, because if you're curious you can check out the spreadsheet, but I will go over the things that I think matter most in the videos. So as you guys know, the pre-made households in Veronaville are extremely connected to each other at the start of the game, and because I'm trying to play as canonically as possible, I didn't want to change that. I definitely wanted to build onto and explore the feud, as well as really keep and expand on the dynamics and special traditions of the 3 main families. The Ultimatehood is actually my first time playing Veronaville rotationally, and I have to say this neighborhood is among my very favorites to play because of its unique integrity and all the possibilities that these more traditional family setups have. It's fun to play them within the neighborhood, and it's also fun to play these sims when they get intertwined with sims from other neighborhoods. So here is my interpretation of the main families. The Caps are old money. They have a long-standing and well-established family company that sells insurance, Cap and Daughters Insurance Company. They have a lot of financial and even political influence in all of Sim Nation, not just Veronaville. They are very conservative and have high expectations for their children, especially the female descendants, as we know they are a matrilineal family. Keeping their social standing and the success of their business comes before anything else in this family, at least for the older generations. The Montys, on the other hand, embody a more relaxed and cheerful way of living. They also run a family business, a restaurant called Montys Mediterranean Meals, which is very popular in this part of town. They of course want nothing to do with the Caps, again, not necessarily true for the younger generations, but even they feel the need to compete with them. The Summerdreams ancestors come from a faraway land. They are currently the only elven family in the city, and to ensure that they fit in, they've remained neutral in the neighborhood feud, making friends with both sides. They are generally very open-minded and social people, and their norms, especially how they handle romantic relations, differ from the usual strict monogamy ideals of the town. They are quite flirty. So it is now 2012 in Veronaville. What happened to these families in the 8 years since the game started? Let's begin with the Caps. Since the death of matriarch and family company CEO Contessa, her husband Consort had taken over the leading role temporarily. Consort respected the matrilineal setup, however, he did not respect the tradition that it was always the firstborn daughter who inherited the title and the position of heir. It was Contessa's wish to have their eldest daughter Goneril become heir, but Consort never thought highly of her. He found her unfit for the role, he never trusted her intellectual abilities, and sometimes he even questioned if she really was his daughter. He was never supportive of her, so he and Contessa didn't even send her to college to get an education, they just had her get married at a young age. After all of this, Goneril had no interest in ever joining the business as an adult. After having her 4 kids, she and her husband Albany bought a big house, although they had to borrow from Consort, and settled in with the kids. Albany started working in psychological research, but he got fired and became unemployed. The family needed an income, so Goneril started working as a low-level natural scientist in the SimCity Central Laboratories, which is headquartered in Strangetown, and she began to think about what she really wanted to do with her career. She had always been more into science than finances. She has a knowledge secondary aspiration, so she decided to do a degree in geography from home. Lafitte Attack had an online course for that. She has now completed this degree, and Albany has since climbed the career ladder in education high enough to reach his dream position as principal at Bluewater Secondary School, which is the public high school that all playable teens go to in the Ultimatehood. Albany and Goneril's children, however, got admitted to private school, so Hal, Desdemona and Ariel now go to Alto Independent High School and Primary School. This was of course after the eldest daughter Miranda left for university, but I will talk about her later. For now, let's stay in this household and let me show you the children. So Hal is now 18, currently a romance popularity sim. He likes literature and dreams of being a journalist. He dated his childhood friend Bottom Summerdream for a bit, but she broke his heart and now he's dating Charlotte Optimus. Desdemona is 17, she has grown out of her fairy phase, she is a pleasure sim who also likes literature, and she has a part-time job as a bookstore clerk. She has only read about romance in books so far, but she dreams about going on dates, she just fears her parents would not allow it. And of course there's little Ariel, who is growing up fast. She is an active child who likes dancing. Much to Goneril and Albany's disappointment, all of their children are into the arts instead of sciences. So Goneril never became the cap heir. Who did Consort choose then? Well, his original plan was his third daughter, Cordelia. According to him, she would have been easy to control, as he had planned to keep moving strings from the background even after his retirement. Unfortunately, as we all know, Cordelia died a tragically early death, so then Consort spent a long time lamenting who to choose, as there were multiple runner-ups in the family, more on that later. But in the end, he passed away unexpectedly in 2010 at the end of round 2 before making this decision. So the family then pulled out Contessa's original will, in which she stated her wish for Goneril to inherit the company. But since Goneril didn't want the role, she passed it down to the second sister, Regan. Regan was an extremely ambitious businesswoman. Still is, I guess. She got the education and she got the skills, and she also married someone of similar qualities. Regan and Cornwall had been working at the company since the start of their adult lives. The reason Consort didn't want her to inherit the post of CEO was because she was too firm in what she wanted. Consort thought she was stubborn and was going to lead the company into its downfall with the bold decisions she makes. Plus, she was intimidated by how determined Cornwall was to have an important role in the company too. And the fact that Cornwall and Regan's first 2 children were boys didn't help either. Consort was afraid if Cornwall became too influential, he would try to divide the company and one day give his sons more power than they should have. Well, currently Regan is CEO and Cornwall is president of the company, and it's too early to tell whether their children will want any part of this in the future. Their firstborn son is called Constantin. He is 6 years old currently, and looking at his personality, he does seem like he will have more than enough ambition. Then the next boy is Clement. He is 4. He could really still become anyone. And then they finally had a daughter called Cosima, who is just a baby. Naming Sims is actually one of my favorite things about playing this game, and I usually consider a lot of factors when picking out a name. Each family has a naming convention, and obviously with the caps this comes somewhat predetermined, but for this branch of the family I wanted to move slightly away from the Shakespearean theme and pick other names that sound classical and noble. Honestly, looking back now, I'm not really sure why I made this decision years ago, but I will stick to it now. So Constantin got his name because I originally wanted them to have a girl named Constance first, but then their first baby was born a boy, and I said, you know what? let's just roll with it. Clement is a name that I always loved for some reason. The feminine version Clementine as well. And Cosima is named after British singer Cosima, who I love. Fun fact, I started listening to her music almost a decade ago now because I really liked her name. They also all start with the letter C because, I don't know, maybe it's just synesthesia because they all have blonde hair and the letter C is yellow in my head. Anyway, let's move on. Now, at the start of the game, Kent lived with Regan and Cornwall. Kent was rumoured to be dating Bianca Monty, but then Kent came out as gay. His siblings were accepting. His father, not so much. He practically disowned him, unfortunately. Kent got in a relationship with Jeff Rutherford and moved into his house in Belodonakov, where they got married. He wanted to leave Veronaville behind. He still has his strong friendship with Bianca and he loves all his nieces and nephews, but he has no interest in the company or feuding with the Montys or any of that drama. He works in science at a high level. He is a theoretical physicist at Sim State University. He is a knowledge and popularity sim. Actually, he hasn't completed round 3 yet because he's in Belodonakov, but I felt I had to mention him in this video because he is still part of the Cap family. But I'll probably get back to him and his husband in the Belodonakov video. We've talked about the middle-aged Caps and their children who are still living at home, so now it's time to talk about the sims in between, those who have recently finished university. The first to go to college was Thibault. He was 19 years old at the start of the game, just like Mercutio Monty, which is the age that I send my sims to college, which might be weird to some people, but it makes sense to me. The Cap youth all went to Académie Latour, and they all lived in this big house on campus. Consort didn't want his grandchildren to mingle with the Montys and other lower class sims in the dorms, so he had this house built specifically for them. I built this pretty much just mirroring the original Cap manor because I'm not a good builder. So Thibault moved in here first. He chose political science as his major. He knew he wasn't going to ever inherit Cap and daughters because he was not a woman, but he still desired power and influence, so he decided he would go into politics as an adult, which his granddad supported. He met Ellen Frost in uni, who was an economics student who knew what she wanted, and what she wanted was mostly money and status. And seeing as she came from far away and didn't have a lot of connections in SimCity, she got excited at the prospect of becoming part of the Cap family and possibly the insurance company. She and Thibault really found a match in each other, and then Ellen moved into the house with him and they got engaged. After they graduated, they got married and moved into the original Cap manor, where they now live just by themselves since Consort had passed away and Juliet and Hermia both moved out. Ellen has dyed her hair blonde to look more like a Cap, and she also started going by her full name Eleanor. I just thought Eleanor Cap sounded better and more traditional actually. She currently fills the vice president role in the insurance company, and she's got ambitions to one day fully take the reins from Regan, even though she is not a Cap by birth but by marriage. Thibault works at the Sim Nation Conservative Party, and he is running for district representative for Veronaville in the 2012 SimCity elections that are going to take place once everyone in the city has gotten to 2012, so finished round 3. Thibault wants to get the Montys to leave Veronaville altogether, and he's hoping that if he comes into power, he can find a way to achieve that. Eleanor is also pregnant at the moment with the couple's first child, who is going to be the first sim of the next Cap generation. Julia is 2 years younger than Thibault. She started uni and moved to the residence on campus when Eleanor moved in, and actually the two of them got along much better than Julia ever got along with her own brother. Despite the disapproval of all of her family, she kept dating Romeo even throughout college, although they of course were not allowed to live together. She graduated with a degree in drama because she was into theatre, but her real dream was always to be a cook. She wanted to work at the Monty family restaurant alongside her future husband, so Romeo, who also started studying drama but dropped out of college by the way, fought his fight with his family to let Juliet work at the trattoria. Up until the very moment of Consort's death, Juliet was meant to inherit the cab company. She had a graduation banquet where Consort was about to solidify his decision to make her the next CEO, but then she brought out Romeo and announced her engagement to him, and that's when Consort died of a heart attack. After this, Juliet and Romeo got married in a private ceremony and bought a huge house from a loan, since they got no financial support from either of their families, and started working at the Montys restaurant. Romeo currently works as a host, and Juliet is currently a server. Mercutio, who is the acting manager of the restaurant at the moment, has promised her she would one day be a cook, but for now they only needed a waitress. Romeo and Juliet realized they won't be able to pay off the loan with the amount they are making, so they are currently trying to think of other ways to earn more money, especially since at the end of the round they found out they are expecting their first child. Juliet is thinking about writing a cooking book, while Romeo is trying to grow vegetables in their garden and catch fish in their pond to sell to the restaurant. Both of them now have the surname Monty Cap with a hyphen. They're both family and popularity sims, although in different orders, and despite their rocky relationships with their families, they both still feel a sense of duty to be there for their family members when they need them to, especially for their siblings and cousins. Miranda, Hermia and Puck are 2 years younger than Juliet and Romeo, and the three of them went to uni, moving into the Cap house on campus when Thibault graduated and Juliet was still living there. The three Cap girls are really close, but Miranda still harbors a secret from many years ago. When they were teenagers and Hermia and Puck were already going out, Miranda and Puck kissed. This was at the peak of Miranda's rebellious phase, after she saw her crush Mercutio choose Hermia over her. Since she couldn't have Mercutio, she felt spiteful and didn't hesitate to reciprocate Puck's flirting, and the two of them ended up kissing. Both of them have come to regret this, as Puck had no intention to cheat on or leave his girlfriend, and Miranda didn't really want to hurt her cousin, so they agreed they would act like it never happened, and still to this day Puck and Hermia are together, and no one ever found out, not even when all of them were living together. Puck was allowed to move into the Cap house on campus with Hermia because of the Summerdreams' long-standing friendship with the Caps, and because Consort, still alive at the time, knew that Puck had serious intentions with Hermia. Hermia is a family and knowledge sim who studied literature and dreams of publishing a best-selling romance novel. Puck's aspirations are family and popularity. He changed to primary family when he realized he wanted to stay committed to Hermia and never wanted to lose her. His hobby is nature and he has an art degree. After graduating, the two of them moved in with Romeo and Juliet into their big house and paid them rent because they figured this was the best solution for everyone. Although they had no interest in working for Cap and Daughters, in fact Hermia was quite harshly against associating herself with the company. In the end, they accepted Regan's offer and joined the company as junior executives, seeing as their degrees didn't really grant them any other viable career paths. Still, Hermia is hoping one of her novels will take off. After 1 year at Juliet's, Hermia and Puck are preparing to move out on their own when the next round starts. And no, technically they're still not engaged. And finally, we're going to look at Cap household number 4. Miranda is a popularity sim who later gained the secondary aspiration of family. Much like her female cousins, she never wanted to work for the family company and instead always wanted out of Veronaville. After getting over her crush on Mercutio, she was still a teenager when she met and fell in love with Rip Grunt, who was also a rebel and even better from out of town, which Miranda found really exciting. She went to uni in Académie Latour, of course, as all the Caps did. She chose the history major as she was really into politics at the time. Rip went to Sim State University. He really enjoyed the community aspect of it. First he lived in the dorms and then he lived in a Greek house, but then he dropped out, disappointing both his dad and Miranda's family because he really wasn't committed to studying anything. So since Miranda and Rip left college, they found themselves having no choice but to rely on the Caps family's help with starting their adult lives. None of them wanted to go back to their parents' house, and they obviously wanted to finally move in together too, so they bought a small house on the Cap side of Veronaville, for which they took out a loan. And since Miranda was struggling to find a well-paying job with her history degree, and Rip had no ambition to find himself a career path at all, they accepted Regan's offer to join Cap and Daughters on the terms that they got engaged, so the family can be sure Rip's intentions with Miranda are serious. Rip never really planned on getting married, but he loves Miranda, and he also loved the idea of taking the Cap name and distancing himself from his own father this way. Rip is a pleasure popularity sim, he's got the music hobby, and he is still mostly his old rebellious, fun-loving self, despite having to play grown up in the Cap's world. He and Miranda both still love going out and throwing parties. We're now moving on to the Summerdream family, who currently still live in their original household, minus Buck, who we've already talked about. So Titania and Oberon got married at the start, and then they decided they wanted more children, and I decided they should have biological children this time around, simply because I wanted more elves. This is just one of those decisions that I made that I can't quite explain from a law perspective, and I haven't come up with a reason why it would make sense for Titania and Oberon to have biological children other than they just felt like it. But yeah, the truth is I wanted them to. Maybe at one point in the future I will make another elven family for this hood, but for now the Summerdreams are all I have. So first they had Lysander, who I often call just Liz. He's a boy who resembles his dad for the most part. He is 8 years old, he's quite social and easygoing like his parents and siblings. His name is from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I'm really pleased with the way it fits into the family naming pattern actually. And so is his little sister's name. This is Quince, she is 4 years old, and just like Bottom, she got a male character's last name for a first name, but I think Quince or Quincy actually sounds like a cute name for a girl, which can't be said for Bottom in my opinion. Also, Quince the fruit is yellow, which is why that is her favorite color and why her room and clothes, although pink for the most part, have yellow undertones. I give my Sims favorite colors because I think it's fun, but I don't like to make them all monochrome. There's gotta be other colors in their lives as well. Oberon and Titania are quite overwhelmed by all the parenting duties, especially Titania, but they do still work full-time because they need the money. They're both home video editors at Simple Stunt Production Studios, which is the big filmmaking company of SimCity. Their job is technically part of the Slacker career, and since such a career path doesn't make sense in my head storytelling wise because all the levels of this career are jobs in different fields, I recently had this idea to think of the Slacker career as kind of a workforce agency contract where you get employed by different companies for like fixed terms through this agency, and if you're a reliable, good worker, you get offered better jobs as you progress. But Oberon and Titania like filmmaking and video editing, so they're going to stay in this position for a while. Oberon is a knowledge and family sim, and Titania is family and romance. And the thing about both of them is they don't really have any set goals for their lives. They just like to live in the moment and enjoy a lot of things at once. And then we also have Bottom in the household, who eventually became the middle child by the time she reached her teens, and her parents weren't particularly restrictive before, but they started paying even less attention to her after the birth of her siblings. So she's become quite independent. Her priorities are friends and dating, but she's also passionate about music, particularly about playing the violin. She is a popularity and pleasure sim who is pansexual. She has dated her childhood friend Hal in the past, but eventually broke up with him because she wasn't sure she wanted to settle down with someone in her teens, and she still wanted to discover herself and what she needs. She's now dating Maisie, who has a part-time job as a paper girl, and hopefully they'll start college together soon. One thing about Bottom that is just a little fun fact, and maybe the start of some side plot, is she doesn't believe aliens exist, even though they literally live in SimCity. She just doesn't believe the green-skinned people of Strangetown really come from a different planet, no matter how hard her friends are trying to convince her. She is not big on science. She has more of a spiritual connection to nature that might come from her elven blood, and who knows, maybe the aliens in Strangetown also don't believe elves are a valid species, so there might be some conflict about this in the future. But now let's talk about the Montys, who are currently spread across 3 households. The main Monty household, where the head of the family, the now deceased Patricio, once lived, currently consists of his widow Isabella, their eldest son Antonio, and Antonio's twins Benedict and Beatrice. In 2004, when the playable timeline started, Mercutio moved out to college and Romeo followed him soon, so there was room in the house for Antonio and his children to move back in after Hero's tragic passing. The Montys are a tight-knit family, and the grandparents obviously wanted to do everything they could do to support their son and grandchildren, so they took them in. Montys Mediterranean Meals, which is the name of the restaurant the family runs, was owned by Patrizio. He has somewhat recently passed away from old age, so now Isabella is the official owner, but she is also way too old to be working. Antonio is the one who is going to inherit the rights to the restaurant, as he is the eldest son, but currently he is the leading chef and the acting manager title is held by Mercutio. Romeo works there as a host, while his wife Juliet is currently a waitress, just like Mercutio's wife Victoria and Beatrice, who works shifts part-time as she is still in school. Isabella is working on a cookbook, which she is hoping to finish before the Grim Reaper comes for her. However, once she is gone, Antonio's fiancée, who is none other than Florence de la Rosa, is going to move into the Monty Ranch. That's right, Antonio fell in love again, and I think Florence is the perfect match for him. They're too old to have children together, but that's fine. Florence is just going to move in and move her flower business to the ranch. Maybe they'll adopt some more pets if they're not too busy with running their respective businesses. The family currently has a cat called Polino, who Ben and Bea are obsessed with. And yes, I use the nickname Bea for Beatrice. And I know it's controversial to pronounce it the way I do, because most people in English-speaking countries default to B. I've also read some people say Bea, but I personally think saying Bea derived from the full name itself and keeping the schwa sound is just as valid, and it's the one that I think sounds best. Fight me. Anyway, the twins are 18 years old as of 2012, and they both have the family aspiration. Benedict dreams of working in education, while Beatrice is not so certain about her career yet, but she is passionate about food and really loves her family, so she can see herself working at the trattoria long term. She really wants a boyfriend, but so far it hasn't worked out with anyone she had a crush on. She's a little jealous of Ben, who is going steady with a girl called Arcadia from school. Ben and Bea are lucky to have Bottom as a best friend because she gives the best dating advice. Now, I already mentioned Mercutio and him having a wife, so let's talk about him. He started college in 2004. He moved into the Monty family's estate in Academy Latour because obviously Patrizio had to have one built too after the Caps did, and he chose the art major. He left his crush on Hermia behind in Veronaville, and he met Victoria Wegner, Vicky, in class, who had similar interests as him. For example, they both have rock music as a hobby, and they have the same aspirations, popularity and pleasure. Even though things were going well with Vicky, Mercutio had a fling with Ashley Pitts at one drunken frat party, but he hasn't told anyone ever. Mercutio has only ever been a rebel on the outside. In reality, he really values his family, and his goal in life is to continue their legacy. So after graduating college, he married Vicky instantly, and both of them took a job in the restaurant. Isabella and Patrizio bought them a big house next to theirs. Not long after this, Vicky gave birth to the couple's first baby, Viola. Her name is a tribute to Mercutio's sister, who was never born, as their mom Olivia died when she was pregnant with her. Viola is about to get a cousin, as I've already mentioned when talking about Romeo's life, but there is one other baby in this newest generation of Montys, and to meet them we have to visit our last household for the day, and that is Bianca's household. Bianca is an educated woman who loves the arts and mostly literature. She works as a journalist at SimCity Times, but her dream has always been to start a family and have children. After her best friend Kent left Veronaville, she was feeling especially lonely. One day, Armand de Bateau walked into her life, and the two of them had gotten into somewhat of a situationship. Then Armand backed out suddenly when he realized dating a Monty would not be beneficial for his good business relationship with the Caps. Bianca didn't even get proper closure and was really heartbroken about it, and in her loneliness she adopted a pet bird and named him Dio after her deceased brother Claudio. It was actually Bianca's best friend Lola Curious who made her sign up to a dating website, which is where she ultimately found the man of her dreams, John Moore. John had a turbulent past dating-wise. She was with Sharon Worth for a while, but she wasn't serious about their relationship. Then he dated Natasha Una, but it didn't work out either. And finally he found his true match in Bianca. He still works at Sim Central Intelligence Agency. He is now a field agent, and he aspires to become the head of the organization one day. Bianca actually got pregnant from John quite fast, the announcement of which was followed by a romantic proposal next to the flaming toilet of downtown. John then sold his house in the Siddhartha Valley and moved in with Bianca at her Veronaville riverside home. They got married and then welcomed their baby boy Sebastian. Sebastian has genetic red hair, which I find really interesting. It might be from his great-grandpa actually. He is now a toddler and it already looks like he might follow in his dad's footsteps as a detective one day, because his personality is possibly even more suited for it than his dad's is. Bianca didn't want to take part in running the Montys restaurant, which her family accepted, so surely they will not expect her child to do so when he grows up either. I'm not sure yet if Bianca and John are going to have more children, but there is a possibility. It is Isabella's lifetime want after all to have 6 grandchildren, so if Bianca can make one more before Isabella passes away, she'll have that fulfilled. But then again, as much as Bianca does love her family, she is not the type to have another baby merely to make her mother happy. But they're just about to move to a bigger house, so who knows what the future holds. So that would be it for the story so far in Veronaville. I think I mentioned everything really important, but if you're not like me and for some reason would like to dive deeper into my Ultimatehood gameplay, you can go on my Tumblr to read stories or check out the gigantic spreadsheet for all the raw data. There are more neighborhood catch-up videos coming on this channel, hopefully in the near future, and who knows what else as well. I'm trying not to make promises though, because that never ends well for me. I hope you enjoyed this little insight into the first few years of Veronaville, and if you've never played Veronaville, I think you should. I'll just end the video on this note. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully see you soon. Bye!